Boom! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. I'm your host, Alan Sakyan. Very excited about talking about being an international student from China. We have Zixuan Wang, aka Alicia, joining us on the show. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting.
We're very excited. You are also a freshman at Minerva Schools.
Yes.
And we are very grateful for Minerva Schools ecosystem. So many international students getting to collab together. We've had, Sadi now on the show, Nazar on the show, now you. This is very exciting. I love these 19-year-old minds that are just cutting edge of young people. I love it. For those that don't know, Alicia's background. She is from Shanghai in China. She's an international student, very focused on art and science at Minerva Schools. And freshman, 19. So let's start things off. Check out links in the bio for those that want to check out Alicia's profiles. Or Zixuan's profiles. I'm doing my best to get into we got to get into the culture of foreign languages and names. This is so important.
I agree.
So let's start off on this big history perspective. So we find ourselves as stewards of Earth. We're running in the human experiment. What is your take on the state of humanity?
Well, I have to say, I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. That's why I can only say from my own perspective, and which probably is pretty narrow. But I do think we are at the brink of something, just because there are lots of things going on in the world right now. For example, we got the first genetically edited twins in China, and I think in terms of evolution, we don't know what is the long-term effect of that, and we also have human activities interacting with the social, with the earth, with environment. For example, when let's take weather as an example. The weather prediction forecast might not be that accurate right now, just because we as human beings are also affecting the whole ecosystem, and then the ecosystem is now sort of reacting back, and that complex system perspective, which I think will change a lot within 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, as an aspiring scientist and an artist, that you immediately jump to the genetic engineering and the way that we call it the Anthropocene, the period of time where humans are causing the most interaction with the climate and change in the climate, and so and control as a dominant species on Earth. Of course, it's great that you jump there, and also it speaks of you're looking at things to the edge. You care a lot about what's happening at the edge of the science, and so maybe tell us quick. Why do you care so much about going to the edge?
Going to the edge. I think it is basically, for everything I do, I learn, I study, it is because of curiosity, that I want to know the world better. I want at least try to understand how it functions, and also to, for example, trying to predict the complexity of the whole system. And that is why I put a lot of attention towards what is going on within the field of science, and also in terms of the longer evolution of human. And I think it is interesting to think in terms of a very broad way. And yeah, I really want to see how things is going in the world right now.
Yeah, you've mentioned multiple times this complex systems, understanding that even a tiny bit of extraction of some resource in a place in the world has a massive impact on the ecosystem in that place. And migration patterns, animals living there, there's all different types of stuff that actually gets affected by this, including the people that get to consume the resources wherever it gets delivered to. So that's a very, very good lens. I'm glad that you brought that up. And you brought up curiosity, which is a good segue, because this is kind of what you have taught me, is that has been your main pillar and driver of your life growing up, and picking what you're most interested in. And this is I would say probably quite different being in Shanghai, in China, than I was in Sioux Falls in the middle of the United States and South Dakota. Ron was on the East Coast near Boston and Peabody. And this is, what is it like in Shanghai?
For me, I am pretty lucky that my family is sort of allowing me to discover everything around me, and they don't constrain me on like what you should do in the future. So that is why when I showed my interest for the nature when I was like very little, when I was like 3 or 4 years old, my mom was very supportive, and she brought me all the books that I want, and also for every weekend, my family will bring me to like picnic, bring me to a museum, to a science museum, and to like sort of experience what is not only what is happening in the world, but also like what it's like explain to me how the world works in terms of science. So that is how I become very, very interested in this field. And growing up as an international student in Shanghai, I am really lucky because like I have the opportunity to pursue what I am interested in. So around 7th or 8th grade, I become very, very interested in biology in terms of like the whole science field. And my teachers was very supportive. We found like anatomy clubs, and then we did read science journals and more like published some of them within our school journals. So yeah, that was like.
Which you were an editor.
Yeah, I was an editor, and yeah, I also published some in our like school journals.
Awesome.
So I was very lucky because everything around me basically supports me and allows me to pursue what I am interested in.
That's huge. So mom and dad were big supporters of getting you the books that you wanted. They weren't very constricted on what path you could take. They were letting you play and figure out what you wanted to do. So that's huge. And then also kind of taking on, you know, with your interest and curiosity, you took on leadership roles, which is very important. What would you say then was kind of like that experience of growing up? Did you had your sister came much later, like when you're 14, she was born, so that's much later. But that, you know, growing up in that culture, in that economics, in that political and social sphere, what is that like? Teach us about that.
For me, I didn't quite like sense the difference between me and like other families who has more children. However, I do think with more children that will cultivate more responsibility within the bigger ones. And also for the only child as my family, people like, because we have this system in China which like per family only can have one child, and it is only until 2014 that the policy got open and said like you can have 2 child at maximum. So growing up in an environment that people around me are all single child in their family, it is sort of a lot different from like when I came to Minerva, because sometimes people are not that caring. Because they are not used to, for example, like caring for others, caring for little or younger brothers or sisters, but like at the other hand, they got all the resources within the family, so that they probably have like more, can I say freedom, or like they have more opportunity to do what they want, because all their parents' attention are like completely on them. So yeah.
And then that first of all is the crazy thing, is living somewhere where the government says that you can only have one child. That's a very, very crazy thing. But at the same time, yeah, population is a very important thing to also take into account and everything. But then growing up, now, you know, you were teaching me about this. There's about 17,000 or so Mandarin characters, but you only need to know, if you apply, Pareto distribution, probably only 20% of those characters are going to be used 80% of the time. So maybe somewhere around like 3,000 or so are used the majority of the time. And this is like a rote memorization thing. You see a character, you have to remember that it's, man or woman or dog or pizza or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, teach us about what this is like, because you start doing this, because this is like a whole new way when you're learning English and Mandarin at the same time growing up. You're learning the English words, what they mean, the Mandarin characters, what they mean. This is very interesting to me.
Well, I think they are 2 completely different language systems. For Mandarin, we are sort of using our picture memory to sort of like memorize how a character looks like, and then to associate it with a certain meaning.
Yeah.
And by combining, like for example, A and B, and then we got like AB, which is a brand new different meaning from A and B. So like doing that, like combining words and like sort of playing around with characters, it is much difficult than English, just because English has like only like a certain amount of alphabet, and then although some of the vocabularies are very different, we still can, like, for example, read a word even though we don't know what it means, but like in Chinese it is impossible. Like if you don't know that character, you cannot read it. You might can like guess it, but like it is not for certain that it will pronounce that way. So
you can sound out a word in English. You can like sound
exactly,
out,
yeah.
but
in Chinese it's like a brand new picture that you have never seen.
Interesting.
Yeah. So. But I do think lots of Chinese are nowadays learning English, and then the society are valuing the skills of English very much. So yeah, more and more people are starting to get international, and then to like voice their ideas more.
And Shanghai is what, 20 million people just itself. It's a big.
24 million, yeah.
24 million people just itself, which is crazy. It's like double the Bay Area. It's like, that's nuts. And so then, is it, you know, when you're growing up, it's pretty like the families in Shanghai are doing fairly well because it's considered like a tier 1 city. So like you have to be of a certain economic status to be able to afford to even like live there and stuff, right?
Yeah, mostly, right? Yeah.
Okay.
But there are some occasions that people come to work in Shanghai because like they find more opportunities here, and people like come to Shanghai to study university here. Yes. So yeah, there are lots of occasions that people are not in Shanghai that they can come and then to learn and live here. Yeah. And
when, you know, Nazar was just on the last episode, he was teaching us that you taught him.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, because this is cool stuff, is that China in many ways has kind of leapfrogged a little bit in terms of tech, and they kind of figured out that if you can incorporate, you know, if everyone's using WeChat, and this is a Tencent company, if everyone's using WeChat, and then if everyone is using the QR system for payments, like WeChat Pay, right? And if they're using the QR system for making contacts and everything, it's just like much more easy and seamless to just come in.
It is. So basically, I think the majority of Chinese don't even have cash with them whenever they go out. They don't even have a purse, or they don't bring their cards. They only have their phone, which is enough for paying everything. So no matter whether you want to go to a restaurant or like convenience store, buying like a house, you can go through this process of like scanning your QR code and then transferring that money directly to the business account. So which is very convenient, and at the same time it is sort of like PayPal, so that you can also transfer it to your friends. Yeah, and then So
are most people using WeChat Pay or Alipay, or a little bit of both?
Both. I think everyone
like
uses
50-50, you'd say split? Because you have to have an Alipay account to pay for Alibaba goods.
And also for actually they are like, you can use both of them to pay for anything, but like it is more convenient to use like Alipay when you're like sort of shopping online. They can like everything in China you can bought it online. So like no matter you want a bamboo in your house, like a dog, a rabbit, or anything you eat, something from America, something from Australia, you can all buy them online. So yeah.
This is the new era of like Amazon and Alibaba's making this crazy, just 2 days, sometimes even faster now. And very interesting. And then now, what in terms of like, you know, being around a lot of other young people your age growing up in Shanghai, you know, I was also learning that you have by a certain age in China, you're kind of like, do you want to go into this path or is it is it a science or humanities, or what is again the distinction again, the art versus science, or what is kind of like the two paths?
Yeah, sort of. On one hand, there's like literature and art, and on the other hand, there's like all the science, math, engineering subject, which is like within the traditional Chinese system. I don't think any of the international school students will take this path just because we have such like different education system, but when they are studying in the like traditional Chinese system, they have to decide this when they are entering entering the high school. Actually, I'm not quite sure of this. Probably during the sophomore of their high school, and then they'll have to take tests, and also after that they'll have to take the Gaokao, which is sort of like the SAT test for like for the whole country.
And it's called the
Gaokao.
Gaokao.
Yes.
Gaokao. Interesting. And that's a standardized test for either science or art, depending on where you want to go, or for both?
Depending on where you want to go.
And then that way you know kind of in your like earlier high school which way you want to go, and then you would apply to the next level of colleges or universities with that. Okay. So with your curiosity, when you're young and you're getting all these interesting of stimuli from your parents and from your environment and everything, so you picked science and art. So how were you able to kind of like go into the system when you were very interested in both of them?
So yeah, I think one of the biggest problem within the right now Chinese education system, which is probably also exists in like education system all over the world, is that people who think art is art and science, they sort of keep these subjects separated. And when I say art, it doesn't mean like only art, but like also philosophy and all that kind of literature area, and also like I don't think that people should keep these subjects apart. For example, when we are looking at the link between philosophy and science, lots of great philosophers in the world are actually scientists themselves. For example, like Aristotle and Plato, they come up with like some frameworks when looking at observing the world. And also, for example, Karl Popper, he is sort of the reason why right now we are falsifying a null hypothesis when we are doing experiments and researches, and he is a philosopher himself. So I don't think that people should keep like art to art and science to science.
Agreed.
I think it is very important to take an interdisciplinary approach when you are solving a problem, because a problem, for example, when we are classifying a problem to science problem, it is not only science problem. It is a social problem that it might matters a lot of people around the world. It is also like a philosophy problem, because both of them are trying to understand the world better and predict how it functions. And so I think all problems within the world is a complex system, so all problems within the system should not be separated alone, so that I don't think that in this case the problem can be solved.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's time to have science and art be more interdisciplinary when the children are learning it. That's so important, especially since art kind of helps us think outside the box. It helps us make designs that make science more relatable for the public as well, which is very important. And science can help art, because then science can help art become potentially more about progressing civilization in certain directions of progress. So now you did international boarding school. So, what's that like in middle school and high school for you?
It was very fun. From the start, when I was in middle school, and then I was suddenly told that I need to go to a boarding school without my parents, and then to live with my friends. At first, it was a bit intimidating for me, but then it turns out very good, because my parents are. I was like a very, very independent child when I was very little. My parents were super good with me doing my own stuff, and then like sort of like managing my own time, and not like sort of saying that this is the score that you need to get, and like did you finish your homework, that kind of thing. So I was raised as a pretty independent child, so it wasn't a great challenge for me to like live alone with my friends and with the teacher from the dorm. So yeah, it was really fun.
Now, this is interesting. You get shipped to middle school, so you're like, you're what, 10? You're like 10 years?
11, yeah.
Yeah, you're 10 or 11 years old. And then where's the international boarding school? Is it outside of Shanghai?
It is within Shanghai, but it's like very far from downtown.
Like an hour or so drive, or
more
even two. Okay, and then you start living with other 10, 11, 12-year-olds in a kind of like a dorm system. And then do you go back to see the parents every couple months?
No, every week actually.
Oh, in the weekend you would go back to parents. Okay, interesting. Okay, so that's not too bad. I thought, it can be, but that's still good. 5 days without parents, you're building independence.
Exactly, I love it. Like I love the balance there, because I do have time to spend with my family, but on the other hand, I can do like independent studying and then to hang out with my friends.
Yeah, that's so important. It's very interesting thinking about what the ideal model for education design is, and we talk and think a lot about that. Like, what would be the best code for kids to learn when they're birthed into the world? What could give them the best big picture of what's happening, the complex systems understanding of our world? Now, when you're doing the international boarding, you went from middle to the high school in the same international boarding school?
Yes.
Okay. And then in high school, you picked up like tons of these activities. Did you do these also in middle school?
Yeah, some of them are studied from middle school, yeah.
This list is very long. You did Arctic protection, wildlife protection, editor of the Science Journal, which you mentioned earlier too, ice skating. Yeah. This is all very cool. Yeah, tell us about all these.
So ice skating, I started after primary school, and then there's a period of time that I was trained to become professional ice skater, but however I decided not to. I wanted to keep it as one of my hobby, so I came back and then I started to shift more and focus to my academic life, but also trying to keep that as well, because I did learn a lot from ice skating, so I tried my best to keep that as one of my hobbies while studying in the middle and high school. And for others, for the Arctic one and wildlife one, myself was very, very environmental person. So I did care about wildlife and the environment a lot since I was very little. I would yell at my parents because they forgot to turn off the tap, or they wasted electricity in the house. So all my parents are they know that, so they are pretty supportive of that as well. And that is when I decided I think it's in middle school, so I decided to apply to a Arctic expedition.
Very cool.
So it starts with my
we have some images too on the Arctic expedition.
Yeah. So it starts with my interest in biology. I want to see how is it to work with a bunch of scientists, botanists, and also people from different fields, different countries, and that was a very, very, very life-changing event. Just because I got in touch with people all over the world. It is pretty similar with Minerva, the community, that people come from all over the world, and I was 14 or 15 at that time, I guess 14, and it is that time I realized how it is so important to meet people from different culture, and then to sort of take their perspectives, because so that we can view a problem from multiple perspectives and probably solve it. Think outside the box, think outside your own mindset. So that is very life-changing for me. And also during that trip, I noticed how I am passionate about the interdisciplinary approach, because we have artists. We painted during the workshops. We did some of the researches with scientists as well, and
you guys had a lot of fun.
We did. We ran into the Arctic Ocean. It was very fun. And after a few minutes, we were told that a polar bear is approaching, so we need to run back to. We saw a lot of polar bear, 20-something polar bears.
Very cool.
Yeah, and during that expedition, I also obtained some perspective on education. There was once when one of the botanists showed me the oak tree. The oak tree we know are very tall and large, trees there, but like the oak tree in Arctic is like this little. They're like grass. I was like,
this oak tree?
Yeah, like
no
oak
way.
tree grow like for like 20 years, like this big.
What?
Exactly. I was like, is this oak tree? And he said, yeah, it is. And I was like, what makes the difference? Why oak trees in cities are like much taller, and then oak trees here in Arctic are very, very little.
The roots can't go down to get as much soil?
That is one of the explanation. And then what he said was like, he lies on the ground, and he's like, come on, lie beside me. And I was like, why? Suddenly I need to lie on the ground. But like I did what he told me, but at the moment when I lie down, the wind that was like howling through us suddenly disappeared. So he said, this is why that the oak trees are much closer to the surface, to the earth, than what we see in warmer places, because they can avoid wind, they can survive for a longer period of time. Without the wind, they can obtain the transpiration rate to a slower rate, so that they don't lose water that often. And that is how a species adapts to its environment. And that is the moment when I realized that I can actually learn through like these kind of experience more than sitting in the lecture room and listen and like memorizing textbook information. And that kind of episode has like happened a lot. So I did learn a lot during that expedition, and this expedition is one of the reasons why I chose Minerva later on.
I love that. I love that. So first you had to go through a process of applying to get into the Arctic expedition.
Yes, I was actually the only student from China
that applied.
Yeah,
how many
that got on the expedition trip.
How many people got into the expedition trip?
I actually can't remember, but like 100 around, or
from around the world.
100, yeah, around
Very
the
cool.
world.
And then that's all around the age of like 14, 15-year-olds.
And also some of the college students.
Some college
as well.
students too.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And then, so when you got into that program, like you said, it was cool both learning from different lenses, different people from different cultures. That's such an important way to kind of bring civilization all together. And then two, the other cool thing was that when you saw things like the little tiny oak tree, you were able to see a new way of like, wait, why is it like that? Can I learn more about science? And can I make art while you're there? You're making art with the other ones. So these things coming together kind of led your interest into Minerva as well. So then tell us about how you went from, doing all these leadership activities in your school and then applying to Minerva.
So I got to know Minerva from a current Minerva student who is like now in Hyderabad or Seoul. Hyderabad, I think.
So from the year before yours, 1 year above yours.
1 year or 2 years.
Or 2 years above yours.
So
from like friends in Shanghai that you knew in Shanghai that applied.
Amazing network.
That is cool. Yeah.
That is really cool. And at that time, I was looking at what school to put on my college list, because I am both applying to the US universities and also UK universities. So I was wondering one day, and then suddenly like our mutual friends sort of linked us together, and they said she went to Minerva, and I was like, what is Minerva? I never heard of this school in my life. And then that student actually sat down with me and then go through what is Minerva like, how is her experience here for like the whole afternoon. And that is the moment when I realized like this is probably the education that I want, and that is the most suitable for me.
And then from there, then this is great that you have a mentor that had went through the system, like an alumni or a current student that was able to help teach you, because that is now, we talk about that a lot on the show. This mentor to student is a big deal. Bloom 2 Sigma is a huge thing in education for children. It puts them 2 standard deviations above the mean if they get that. So that's crucial. And then you had an application process to go through to get into Minerva. Minerva's acceptance rate is extremely low. So, so you were really putting together kind of your big picture, both contribution that you've done in middle and high school, as well as, what your vision is. So what was like your vision that you were telling them about that got you into it?
So like, I am really interested in neuroscience, and also from what I said before, I am really interested in the interdisciplinary approach to it.
Yes.
So, neuroscience, philosophy, and psychology are the three subjects that I am really interested in, because like I am so curious about like how a bunch of neurons, like their cells, and then how can they make you think? Yeah. What makes the difference between person and person? Like your brain is not like very different from my brain, but like we think differently and we have different perspectives and we are like such different individuals. So that is what I was like really, really curious about, and that is why from the field of science, a field of biology, I decided to study like neuroscience in the future.
And then what's your like favorite part about, you were just describing a little bit about like it's crazy that your mind grew up in a different place, got different stimuli, but we're brains are such similar processing systems at the same time. What are you most excited about, neuroscience, psychology, like within consciousness, within kind of that that framework? What are you thinking about like the most, putting most of your time on?
For me, there are two areas. One is like understanding. So understanding how brain works, how it functions under different conditions, and how it forms like the personality of different people, and like the relationship between genes and brains, like nurture and nature, and all that kind of thing. So like understanding what is going on within our body. And the other thing is mental illness. So I'm really interested in like psychiatry, psychology, and what we can do to use like the most cutting edge tools, optogenetic tools, or like other methods like drugs to cure, or like at least work on like curing that mental illness. Yeah.
Love it, love it. This is what I'm talking about, 19-year-olds that are super pumped about helping with mental illness, helping with understanding our minds, and like this is what I'm talking about. I love it, love it. Okay, and then now like you're finding yourself part of the Minerva ecosystem now. You're a freshman. You landed in San Francisco first. We have some images about this too, where you find yourself here. You're starting to also make some art and some of your creations, and then what would you say has been this like these moments of like, whoa, I'm in the U.S., I'm in San Francisco, I'm with a bunch of other international students. Tell us about this feeling.
It feels amazing. So I told you before that I went to an international school, so like the U.S. kind of mindset and like the environment isn't very unfamiliar for me. However, the community is. It is so interesting that we have such a diverse community. We have like 150 students coming from more than 50 plus countries, and it is so interesting to get their perspective of like what is going on in their country, and how, for example, how they view an ideology that like differently from mine. So that is one of the most interesting thing like in the Minerva community. And also I think Nazar mentioned before, we have like 1001s where a bunch of students present their own country with like their food and then their culture norms and share with the community. And that is very, very interesting. And also during classes, so during classes we don't lecture. So Minerva classes doesn't contain any lecturing. All the studying about this class, you have to done it before by your own. So the ideology is like, if you can access these kind of information online, why don't you do so? Like, why don't you learn yourself? Lots of the current like education, like the higher end education, like universities, they put money, they put time into lectures, which students can basically find them online. So Minerva's ideology is like, don't waste that time. During class, we only apply what you learn, and also discuss.
Apply and discuss.
So so the class is actually very intense, because the professors are really pushing us to think hard and to answer questions about, for example, how leadership, how like different styles of leadership can lead to like different regime shifts within the space in like a complex system perspective, and like how to deal with the unpredictability and non-linearity with the system, and for empirical analysis, which is like natural science in other schools, we look at how to mitigate bias during researches, how different research type, for example, observational study, interventional study, case study, how these types can be suitable for different like hypotheses and questions that you want to solve. So it's really interesting to learn and apply these kind of skills, and to also like to use them in real world situation. It's a sort of a mindset that we do use it in daily life. So it's really like it's amazing experience.
Yeah, this is very cool that it's a you learn on your own through the internet resources that you have, and you study on your own, and then you go in at class, you only discuss and apply.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. And then so you have a 15 or 18, you said, in every class-ish.
15, yeah, around.
And then the teacher or professor, the way you're interacting with them is that what do? They ask you about the material that you've taken in, and that you talk to them and you talk to the other students. How does that tell us about that?
So professors can either ask questions about the material that we learned by ourselves before the class, and also we have like breakouts. So giving us a different context, like putting what we learned, abstract that skill and put it into a context, because like you have to react differently according to like the different contexts that you are in, like different situations. So we are going to put that into context and say like, in this context, I think principled negotiation is better than other kind of negotiation, because this is how we achieve our purpose. So that is how and after the breakout ends, we'll go to debrief, where each group share their own thoughts, and then having a discussion about what can we do better, and like the professors will also ask some questions about their work. Yeah.
And then you also go out and do activities in the city,
yes,
as I was mentioning, which is so cool as well. What were some of your favorite activities that you went out in the city and you learned?
The activities, so like we have two parts of interacting with the city. The first one is the LBA, the location-based assignments, which pushes, like force students to go and interact with the city, because there will be no difference if you don't go out. Because we all take classes on computer and like through the internet. So if you don't use the resource of the city properly, it would not benefit you. So one of the location-based assignments is like that is upcoming actually, is like when we are learning game theories in formal analysis, we have to go and watch a game and then do like what we learned, apply what we learned during class and to that game. So, and then write a paper about it. And also we have, I think Nazar mentioned utopia and dystopia, to like observe a location for 5 hours and then see how people interact with them. And that all kind of sort of thing. And we also have like interview one of the, like a person from one organization in the Bay Area, and then to get a sense of like analyze their leadership style, their organizational structure, how can they do better with the weakness, the SWOT analysis. So that is the kind of the part of location-based assignment. And on the other hand, we have civic partners. Civic partners are the partners who will like support us during our final project. The final project are all the real world problems that we want to solve. For example, I was with Nazar, and our problem is like how to increase the awareness of biotech, citizen science in the Bay Area, because like I said, science is only science, especially biotech. Like people have this stereotype that only scientists can do scientists. However, we really want more diversity into the field. That we want science. We want artists, we want like computer scientists in the field, and then to collectively solve a problem together.
And that's the interdisciplinary take.
That is. So then after we choose the big question that we're interested in, we're going to pair up with a civic partner who is an organization within the Bay Area, whether a business, an NGO, or any kind of organization, and then together we'll be solving this problem. So the organization that cooperating with us is bio-curious, and it is acting as like a biotech hackerspace that is open for basically anyone. So yeah, this is what we are working on.
And the more you talk about the way Minerva Schools is designed, the more I realize that like this is a very ideal way for for students to become educated, especially the travel into different cultures around the world and the local assignments that you get, and then the discussion and application of everything that you're learning. Like, I'm just like so in love like with Minerva Schools.
We have a master program.
Well, we gotta, we messaged Robin about this too. Like we want to do a greater partnership with Minerva Schools. So we'll include her in the email later, and we hope to to strike up something with you guys on a larger scale, because it's just so exciting learning from you guys. You come here, you're 19, you're from around the world, you're getting to hang out with each other, and just it's so beautiful. It is. It's beautiful. Okay, so now you were giving us an understanding of of your science interests, your art interests. We have a couple of your art as well. Ron, we can pull those up. You can explain to us. Yeah. So this is what's going on in your art?
So I didn't like study art. I didn't study art at all. But when I was bored or on my free time, I love to like do doodlings. I love how the colors, the combination of colors, and also photography as well. So I really appreciate the art in life, and I think it is really important to sense the details that makes your life a lot more happy. So I think by like looking at the art and within our lives is like one way to like sort of making your life better. Yeah.
And then what are you specifically looking for in that detail in art that can make life better?
Well, for me, it is basically anything that I appreciate. For example, when I was like when I was like wandering around the San Francisco like city and all the areas, I'll be sort of putting on my photographer mindset, which allows me to like look at the details, like the blue sky, the ocean, the clouds, and also like the street performers in pretty much like details. And through photography, I really learned how to appreciate, for example, a sunny day, and how to appreciate very detailed things, and that will literally make me very happy about it. So yeah, I can enjoy my life much better through art.
Yeah, that's a very profound statement. I can enjoy my life much better through art. Yeah, having that additional discipline as something that is on your tool belt of knowledge is very important. Okay, and now some thoughts from you before we get to these last simulation questions. You find yourself in this generation. You're 19, and you're born in the year 2000, which is very crazy to us. And so what do you feel happening? You were born with the technology in your pocket, and you really had it throughout your entire adolescent years. Like, what do you see happening in your generation and with the ideas that you have to solve some of these biggest problems that we have?
I do think right now we have a lot more tools that we can use to solve the big problems. We have more advanced technology, we have like more advanced databases, and also education as well. And with the development of like internet and all the technologies we have, no matter in which area, like no matter in biology or chemistry or computer science technology, that I do think that we are working towards solving the problem. But however, we need to keep in mind that we don't cause us more problem through the development of tools that we need to solve the problem. So. Yes. Exactly, just like the genetic editing twins that I said, if we can actually modify human genes, that is like a mind-blowing process that maybe the world can become like for example, the rich people can cure any diseases, like they are capable of doing anything. They're sort of like the superhuman kind of species, I can say that, and where the poor have to deal with all like the diseases and all that kind of like the separated world.
And
that,
hopefully it
exactly, I don't want that.
democratizes. Yeah, I know this is.
So like I don't want anything like that to happen, but like just like that, we cannot like pollute the environment more through our process of like industrialization or like developing new technologies. We really need to keep be aware of what are the consequences long term rather than in the short term. So like we need to think what will happen to these twins like 70 years ago.
Exactly.
So like a long time like afterwards.
Yeah, the way you speak about longitudinal studies on humanity is, again, this is incredible. Being 19 and thinking this way is so important, and even the visions that you have of what could go wrong as well. How do we preventatively solve these issues that could arise? All right, let's do our round of simulation questions at the end. First question is: are we alone in the cosmos?
I don't think so. I don't think so just because in terms of possibility, I don't think so, because we still don't know what is the edge of the universe, and we don't know, we only have like a limited amount of knowledge about the cosmos, the universe. So I don't believe that we can say that for sure we are alone in the universe. But however, we have like this great silence that we haven't heard from any of other like extraterrestrial intelligent like living organisms. So like it actually makes me a bit sad, because like whenever I think that we might be alone in the universe, but yeah, I don't think that is like statistically probable. So I do believe that there are lives out there, but it just like depends on time, like how long that we are going to find them.
And then this is simulation. So yes, you have another thought around it?
I have another thought that we are searching for life that is only similar to us. So like we are only searching for life that can communicate with us. That is reasonable, because like if we find another form of life that we cannot communicate with, that wouldn't be a lot more different. However, like our knowledge is only limited to ourselves. For example, we only have 5 senses, or maybe like 6 senses right now, that we only, maybe like we cannot imagine what we haven't experienced. So maybe there are lives like very close to us where we don't know, we don't consider that as a form of life, or we cannot categorize it as life just because we don't feel the same as them. So I do think if we need to view the concept of living organism maybe in a broader way in order to search for lives outside of Earth.
Yes, exactly. Our imagination, like you said, we expand our imagination, and that's a huge part of being able to think of what else could possibly be. It's a simulation, so we must ask you: are we in a simulation?
I said before, like I wish we are. I wish we are, because first, it would be fun. Like it would be fun just because everything we know might be different. And the other thing is, if we are in a simulation, that means someone can explain what is happening right now to us.
Like they can explain the source code.
Exactly. They're like this superior being that might explain a lot of like problems, that questions that we have no idea right now. For example, like how life comes from, and like what is evolution, and all that kind of questions. So if we are in a simulation and someone did create all these kind of systems, I would love to hear from him or her that what causes all these kind of things happening.
Yeah, communing with the creator of the simulation, that's a very interesting, and being able to learn from that, I like that. I like that answer a lot. And then running our own potentially as well, simulations. Last question. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
This is really hard, but like in general, I think everything in the world is beautiful because it exists for a purpose. And all atoms and cells, like they come from stardust, and how that stardust can form us, and how that stardust in the universe can form like everything around us. That idea is very, very amazing. And also just think about like in the bigger scale that the Earth and all the solar system and the sun, and how that coincidence makes life possible, and that is very beautiful to me. And also, I have to mention, personally, my Border Collie.
Your Border Collie.
I really love
that
him.
you begged your parents for 14 years to get. That's so funny.
He's really cute, and he's beautiful.
Yeah. It makes me so happy knowing that we have 19-year-olds that are as smart as you, and that we have things like the Minerva School for you guys to all get together and keep working together on solving some of these major challenges that civilization is facing. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for coming on to the show. Thank you. Thank you. And it's even as something as interesting as these beautiful names that we have, Se Shen Wang.
Yes.
Se Shen Wang. And that you're growing up with that and your English name, Alicia, at the same time.
Yes.
Which is, I want a Chinese name. Ron needs a Chinese name. We want our second names too. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below to what our second name should be. And check out Alicia's links below as well. Go and support her, follow Simulation, follow us. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Give us your thoughts in the comments below about what we were discussing. We'd love to hear from you. Share these conversations out with other people as well. Also, support the artists and entrepreneurs that you believe in. Support them, support us. Let's build the future together. Huge shout out to Ronnie Vargas. Thank you so much for producing and directing. We love you very much. And go and build the future, everyone. Manifest your dreams into the world. Thank you, and we will see you soon. Peace.